This video is sponsored by the book summary app, Blinkist. Use the link in the description to receive 1 free week and 40% off a premium membership. Nothing to be done. I'm beginning to come around to that opinion. All my life I've tried to put it from me, saying, Vladimir, be reasonable. You haven't yet tried everything. And I resume the struggle. So there you are again. Samuel Beckett is widely regarded as one of the darkest, strangest, and most dramatically innovative writers of the 20th century. Gaining international fame in part for confusing and frustrating audiences, his work is coated with the goop of absurdity and oozes with the sludge of black humor. Inside, however, Beckett's work is deeply poignant and honest, putting the pains and plights of the human experience center stage and shining a spotlight on it so we can better see it, laugh at it, cry over it, and embrace it. Beckett was born in Ireland in 1906. From a young age, he excelled in academics as well as sports, particularly in cricket. In 1927, he graduated first in his class from the Trinity College Dublin and received the college's gold medal. Following graduation, he partook in a 2-year exchange fellowship in Paris, where he intended to write and teach, and then returned to Dublin to become a lecturer. During his time in Paris, he was introduced to the renowned author James Joyce, which surely would go on to influence Beckett's path in life. After returning to Dublin to teach, Beckett would quit after only a short time, hating the role and feeling uncomfortable teaching others what he was uncertain of himself. From here, Beckett would dedicate himself to writing. Throughout his early career, he faced constant rejection and failure. He failed at publishing his first novel, and his second novel, which did go on to become published, titled Murphy, was rejected 40 times before finally being accepted by a publisher. Following publication, the novel was not particularly successful, and by his 30s, Beckett remained largely unknown. Throughout this time, and his life more broadly, Beckett suffered from heavy depression and anxiety, spending a notable amount of time in psychoanalysis. His mental conditions and career hardships, combined with his remarkable intellect, surely culminated into the later portion of his life and work, a body of literary creation that potently articulated themes of failure, futility, absurdity, ignorance, pessimism, and psychiatric phenomena. Beckett's career can roughly be divided into 2 major parts, pre-World War II and post-World War II. Before and during the Second World War, while still largely unknown as a writer, Beckett's work was more scholarly, cerebral, and self-assured. During this time, he produced works that included Proust, More Pricks Than Kicks, and Murphy. Following the war, however, his work would naturally begin to change, becoming more disordered, modest, and compact. Between around 1946 and 1960, Beckett wrote fervently with a new creative keenness and intellectual maturity. This creative outpouring would ultimately lead to a major turning point in his career. In 1952, Beckett's play, Waiting for Godot, would almost immediately become a major success upon public showcase, going on to achieve international acclaim, in part for being so unconventional, confusing, and frustrating to audiences. In the play, 2 men, Estragon and Vladimir, meet by a tree on an otherwise desolate, empty country road. Estragon informs Vladimir that he spent the previous night being beaten by anonymous attackers in a ditch. From here, the 2 wait, and wait, and wait. They are waiting for someone named Godot. Throughout the play, they discuss and argue over the situation, trying to determine when Godot will come, why they're waiting, how long they've been waiting for him, and whether they're waiting at the right place and time. They have never met Godot, and they're not sure if they ever will. At some point, 2 other characters arrive, Lucky, a slave, and Pozzo, his enslaver, followed by a boy who informs Estragon and Vladimir that he is a messenger for Godot, and that Godot will not be coming that night. Estragon and Vladimir continue waiting, however. No matter what happens, they continue waiting. Let's go. We can't. Why not? We're waiting for Godot. Spoiler alert, they never find Godot. Nothing progresses, there's no real plot, time is meaningless, everything is circular and futile. Estragon and Vladimir are lost in a hopeless, absurd predicament, passing the time by asking senseless questions and undertaking meaningless efforts. Waiting for Godot was produced in a particular context of Western history. Following the Second World War, humanity was left trying to make sense of and find meaning in the face of unfathomable devastation and malice on account of its own kind. How does one sustain meaning and create art, while so much of the blood of its species is on its own species' hands? While ideals of religion, of social order, of human importance are brought so thoroughly into question. Largely inspired by the movements of existentialism and absurdism, particularly the French philosopher Albert Camus and his work The Myth of Sisyphus, a new artistic and literary movement known as the theater of the absurd emerged out of the rubble of destruction. Beckett would become a major figure of this movement. The theater of the absurd represented and portrayed human existence as fundamentally void of any purpose. It saw the human condition, as we strive and thrash against the universe in the name of meaning, as fundamentally futile and absurd. Man, in this theater, is a puppet compelled by some force or will beyond his purview. Religious ideals are false, political structure is fallible, meaning is illusory. Mirroring these ideas and waiting for Godot, the meaning, objects of interest, and plot are left undefined, unstructured, and unresolved. There are, of course, many interpretations of the work, but what else as a whole is left undefined, unstructured, and unresolved? What else sounds like Godot and never arrives? The structure and format of the play, particularly in the context of the absurdist movement, perhaps is a reflection of what it is attempting to convey thematically about existence itself. In the wake of destruction, both literally from the war and figuratively from the mounting decay of religion and other metaphysical foundations, what are Estragon and Vladimir, if not all mankind, gruesomely awaking to its absurd lost condition, waiting and longing, incapable and undeserving of being saved? All mankind is us, whether we like it or not, says Vladimir. As the audience, like Vladimir and Estragon, all we can do during the play is clumsily wait around and hope for a resolution that never comes, unsure whether to laugh or cry. This condition, of course, isn't just contained in the theater, but in every moment outside of it. Our gods or Godos are not coming. We were abandoned at the tree of knowledge, left to wait for nothing, confused about the point, where we are, and what we should do. And so, what do? We labor. We enslave our own for labor. We putter around, back and forth, thinking and battering with ourselves, against ourselves. We desire further. We sin further. We wait. Perhaps Godot need not even be a representation of God, but rather the fundamental object of longing or salvation. Perhaps Vladimir is a man, and Estragon is the personification of his desire and yearn. Or perhaps they are two aspects of the mind of mankind. And as long as they have each other, they keep going and keep waiting, convincing themselves there is something to do and wait for. When I think of it, says Vladimir to Estragon, all these years, but for me, where would you be? You'd be nothing more than a little heap of bones at the present minute, no doubt about it. There are times when I wonder if it wouldn't be better for us to part, later says Estragon to Vladimir. As humans, we want the sense of having found the thing, truth, salvation, peace of mind, satisfaction, or resolution to longing itself. But this is not in our nature. It is not written in the script. And so, it never arrives, and we keep starting over, asking more stupid questions, doing more meaningless stuff. Don't protest. We are bored to death. There's no denying it. Good. A diversion comes along, and what do? We let it go to waste. Come, let's get to work. In an instant, all will vanish, and we'll be alone more, in the midst of nothingness, says Vladimir. Of course, these are just interpretations. The lack of clear meaning in Waiting for Godot leaves it open to endless interpretations, particularly since Beckett refused to confirm or deny any theories of his work during his lifetime. The only thing I'm sure of is that they're wearing bowlers, Beckett said when discussing the play. The key word in my plays is perhaps, he said another time when referring to his work more broadly. Following Waiting for Godot, Beckett would go on to produce several other plays and works of literature, most notably Endgame, Happy Days, Play, and Not I. Each work largely follows similar themes of the absurdist view, humanity being trapped, confused, tormented, ignorant, and yet still somehow hopeful. In Endgame, the characters reside in an abandoned house in a post-apocalyptic landscape, waiting for some undefined end. In Happy Days, a woman contentedly goes about her daily routine while buried in sand. In Play, characters are stuck in urns, spending their remaining time in a purgatory-like state, discussing their trivial romantic triangle. Not I is just an illuminated mouth of a character contained and surrounded by a black void, the character refusing to acknowledge that things have happened to them. In 1969, Beckett won the Nobel Prize in Literature for, quote, his writing, which, in new forms for the novel and drama, in the destitution of modern man, acquires its elevation, end quote. Of course, his work is not for everyone. It is bleak, confusing, and perhaps frustrating. But for those for whom it is for, it is honest, it is funny, it brings the absurd experience of existence onto a stage or page where we can see it in all its terrible glory. Perhaps in the end, we will wait our whole lives for answers that will never come. But while we wait, Beckett reminds us that we can make art. We can connect over the struggle. We can laugh at it. We can turn boredom, absurdity, and misery into their counterparts. Intrigue, creativity, and beauty. In the words of Vladimir, at this place, at this moment of time, all mankind is us, whether we like it or not. Let us make the most of it before it is too late. Let us represent worthily for one the foul brood to which a cruel fate consigned us. What do you say? It is true that when with folded arms we weigh the pros and cons, we are no less a credit to our species. The tiger bounds to the help of his congeners, without the least reflection, or else he slinks away into the depths of the thickets. But that is not the question. What are we doing here? That is the question. And we are blessed in this, that we happen to know the answer. Yes, in the immense confusion, one thing alone is clear. We are waiting for Godot to come. Teddy enjoys learning about history, politics, and philosophy. He both finds it fascinating, as well as beneficial to his ability to deal with the often unscrupulous nature of society. The problem is, he so often finds himself reading books that aren't that great, or are great, but are difficult to parse or recall. While talking with his friend Ryan about a book he recently read, How the World Really Works, Teddy mentions this problem to Ryan. Hold on, check this out. Ryan says to Teddy, taking out his phone, "It's an app I found called Blinkist, where you can read or listen to summaries and key insights from over 6,600 nonfiction books and podcasts. It takes just around 15 minutes each. It even has How the World Really Works on it." Ryan shows Teddy his phone, revealing some of the ideas they were just discussing, like the current conditions of energy, food production, and globalization, as well as the importance of being aware of how things work in the world when most of us just accept what we've been told. Teddy downloads Blinkist immediately. Now, he's able to easily explore tons of titles he was considering reading, determine which ones sound most relevant to him, prime himself on the ones he's going to read, as well as gain and recall important insights from books in general. Best of all, through Blinkist feature, Blinkist Spaces, whenever Teddy finds a book he loves, now he easily shares it with Ryan, and Ryan does the same with him, creating a feedback loop of learning, progress, and intrigue. You too can do the same and get 40% off Blinkist's annual premium membership and a 7-day free trial by using my link in the description. And of course, as always, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video.